This whole conversation about streamers ruining games got reignited with the Battlefield 6 beta.
Also, I'm going to talk about this for 1 second, bro. I see people talking about like, Battlefield doesn't need to be. Can you guys just let us have one that like BRs? Like,
chat, I really like the game. I think the game is good. I think it's fun, but it's unfortunate to say these days, but in order to keep a game big and alive, fun is not good enough. You need a lot of different facets that kind of evolve with the game, like a roadmap, whether it's rank, other it's just what it is. Like these days, bro, you need to have everything. For it to be like at the top and very popular, like A's have like battle pass skins. It is what it is. It's lame that it's like this, but it's like this.
And while the Battlefield 6 community was pretty quick to shame some of these opinions, I was still interested in the larger topic at hand. Are streamers really ruining gaming?
I like TDM and the domination thing. It's a little bit more intimate. So if you're a Call of Duty guy, you're definitely going to like the fact that like you're all really tight in a little map and you're bobbing and weaving.
Has streaming pushed gaming in a direction that the average player no longer enjoys? As a streamer and a YouTuber, I would have some pretty big blind spots to unraveling this topic. So like any degenerate streamer, I had my community do the work for me. I hosted a 6-hour stream where I was the punching bag, where people could jump into the Discord and tell me exactly why streaming is or isn't ruining gaming. And for those who didn't want to talk, I created a Google form where they could write down their thoughts and opinions. And of course, throughout the whole stream, I was confirming and debating all these different opinions in Twitch chat. Now, while there was plenty of blame placed on streamers for the current state of gaming, there were, of course, many other factors that have impacted the gaming industry, and of course, some positive influences from streaming. Now, although I say streamers, I am actually including all of content creation in this video, because most streamers, if not all streamers, will upload some form of content to YouTube or other social media platforms. So let's see if streamers are ruining gaming. I think everyone would agree that large streamers with large audiences with thousands of people consuming their content live or on YouTube have a greater chance of having their opinions heard by game developers, and therefore a greater chance of their opinions influencing what games are created, what game modes get the most attention, and how the games are managed, i.e. nerfs and buffs. Now, if the streamer does a good job at collecting lots of different opinions from their community, it can be a very effective way of getting game companies feedback about what is or isn't working in their game. But the problem is, what makes a good game and what makes good content is not always the same. Streamers and content creators will always push for game modes, game changes, game types that they think creates entertaining content, or that they think will provide opportunity for them to make more entertaining content. I am guilty of this. Of course, I want games that I vibe with, that my audiences like watching, and that I can make content from easily and therefore earn more money. But this does not always align with the average player. And it does feel unfair when you see big streamers advocating for change in your favorite game that you don't agree with, because it does feel like forums and other avenues for feedback will get less attention and hold less weight than that big streamer. And I think this is exactly what we saw happen with Battlefield 6. A big push by larger streamers for a focus on the Battle Royale modes, which a lot of players would argue is not the core identity of Battlefield, and not the main reason why they play Battlefield. I think the greatest irony for this whole conversation is that even if you don't agree with those opinions of those big streamers, they likely still helped the game. I think you could argue that the backlash was so overwhelming to some of these Battlefield 6 opinions that it solidified what gamers want from Battlefield 6, for it to stick to its core identity and not chase the Battle Royale trend. There are lots of ways that streamers might influence a game company, specifically around metas and playstyles, which I'll talk about later. But I think the bigger picture of what we're talking about here is trend chasing. Battle Royales have been a trend for some time, and now the next big trend is extraction shooters. I think it's undeniable that the extraction shooter trend has stemmed from Escape from Tarkov's success on Twitch, on YouTube, and on social media. And I say that because Escape from Tarkov is not even on Steam or console, so it's not like some CEO saw the player numbers on Steam charts and thought, wow, the kids really like playing this game, let's do something similar. And I think it's more likely that they saw the directory on Twitch and they see viral clips on YouTube and think, oh, this game genre already has a passionate, established community. Let's make something similar and see if we can get that audience. Marathon, Bungie's next game, which is also an extraction shooter, brought in Tarkov content creators to review Marathon. The motive being, will you play this game? Will your audience like watching this game? And more so, will your audience then go out and buy this game? Game companies are increasingly involving streamers and content creators in the developmental process because they understand if they can get the creators on board, they can also nab their communities. The creators, of course, don't have issue with this because they can potentially influence a game to suit them, to suit their content goals, and to suit their audiences. And here is where the issue lies. If you ask Tarkov streamers what they want to play, they'll tell you a game like Tarkov. Or actually, maybe they won't. It doesn't matter. If you ask Battle Royale streamers what game they want to see and play, it's likely going to be a Battle Royale game. And in turn, this undermines seeing new and interesting game genres. Now, I am guilty of this. I like extraction shooters. I can't wait for Arc Raiders. I really enjoyed making Arc Raiders content. But I also have to admit, I would rather that a game studio aim to make a game that I don't know I wanted yet. I didn't know I wanted Destiny until that was in existence. That I didn't know I needed something like this in my life. A genre that technically doesn't exist yet. Or maybe it's not very popular yet. That's what I want. Thankfully, I do think indie developers are actually delivering this experience, but I do think AAA developers suffer from trend chasing. And streamers are a cog in that machine because it's hard to ignore these enormous pre-established communities playing a certain type of game. Now, I've hinted at this before, how streamers and content creators can influence how a game is played by encouraging meta builds or releasing strategy guides. I think this is probably the number one topic people think about when considering streamers' impact on gaming, and that is the overall increase in competitiveness of video games. One aspect of this is you can achieve fame and build an audience by being good at a game. Fortnite showed parents all around the world that you can make millions of dollars by playing a game well. But it's not just PvP games that have been impacted, even PvE events, like in Destiny, the world's first raid race, which is a cooperative experience, can be incredibly lucrative for the top runners. Streamers have launched long-lasting careers from being the best or one of the best teams competing in the raid race. You can go from literally nobody watching your stream to tens of thousands of people watching you compete and then potentially launch your streaming career from there. The appeal of playing games for a living is high and the barrier to entry is incredibly low. If you play on console, there's inbuilt software that can record the last moments of gameplay. In fact, I edited all my videos on PlayStation 10 years ago and I used a PlayStation camera as a microphone. If you're on PC, Nvidia has software to record or OBS is free. Not every single gamer wants to be a creator, but I think it's very reasonable to say that games have become increasingly competitive, and part of that is attributed to esports, and part is also attributed to streamers and the role they play as they show a potential pathway to make money from games. That's not the only thing though leading to more competitiveness in games, but in general, the speed of information. Before a game is even released now, you will see videos about this is the meta, this is the best strategy, do this right now. And I'm guilty of this too. There are a lot of potential issues with this type of content. Firstly, people spoke about the loss of discovery in video games, how they need to completely remove themselves from social media and YouTube so content doesn't spoil a secret, a puzzle, a surprise from the developers. And secondly, if you're playing a competitive game, you can feel disadvantaged by not watching a video or a stream and working out what the best weapon or strategy is to use. The creation of YouTube guides and streamers showcasing the best strategies and the potential to earn money from gaming has definitely influenced the general competitiveness of gaming. Now, this next topic really surprised me because I didn't think it was going to come up, but nearly every single person I spoke to brought up sponsorships. Firstly, I want to say why I was surprised to see sponsorships talked about so much. Personally, I think live stream sponsorships are much more authentic. It's harder to hide a bad game on stream. In fact, recently, Mind's Eye was such a bad game that sponsored streamers just couldn't hide how bad it was. And without doubt, the sponsorships harmed the game release. Like, they might have just got more people to buy it if they didn't know, if they hadn't watched a stream. And this happened so much so that the company started canceling sponsorships on the day of release. I also think people are pretty savvy now and understand that when a streamer takes a sponsorship, they're not going to be as critical as they would have been of a non-sponsored game. I also believe that bad games will just die anyway, and no amount of sponsorships can save them. Regardless, this was mentioned by every viewer I spoke to, so let's talk about it. In general, I think people just dislike streamers being bought as advertising space because it doesn't feel authentic. And whilst I would like to believe everyone can think critically, there's always the risk of being influenced, hence influencers, to make a purchase of a game that's not very good. I think when it comes to streaming, people really value unedited, honest, raw, gut reactions to video games. I think why people brought this up so often is because sponsorships interfere with that authenticity. I also think it reminds people that there is a monetary value in a game performing well. As a streamer, it's in our best interest that a game succeeds. As an example, I made Destiny content for 10 years. I had a community based in Destiny. I could accurately predict how many views a video would get. I knew how many people would join into a stream. I could leverage those numbers to get other sponsorships for games and products. It was an incredible amount of stability to my income. Streamers definitely want games to succeed and persist for as long as possible, so you can build a community around that game with an ever-growing audience. Personally, I've lost like at least 50%. I actually haven't done my tax yet, but I'm predicting at least a loss of 50% of my income, if not more, since moving away from Destiny and covering variety content. Sure, there are some big streamers that do a lot of variety, but even then, they are typically sticking to certain game genres, and likely they got popular off a single game first before moving to variety. Overall, I think sponsorships kind of remind people that streamers and game companies have similar goals. I want you to tune into my stream every day. I want you to play the same game as me every day so we can talk about it. And then I want you to watch my videos about it, and so on and so on. And I think it reminds people that regardless of how authentic, friendly, approachable, relatable a streamer tries to be, we are still a cog in the billion-dollar gaming machine. And the opposite of sponsorships and avoiding criticizing games because we're sponsored to say stuff about them is embellishing the flaws of a game to stir up drama. We all know that a controversial video about the negatives of a game will perform better than a video that's like, this game is great, I think you should play this game. Drama and rage bait will always generate more views and more attention than other types of content. And what this can do is really create a toxic, negative, highly critical environment. My community that I was talking to during this stream was definitely thinking about Destiny when talking about this topic and how people can really start to dislike a game but continue to play it, and drama and rage bait videos capitalize on that. I think streamers and content creators can definitely do good in amplifying genuine issues with the game, but they can also go too far and sensationalize issues for the sake of views. And I am also guilty of doing that. It's hard to know exactly how this impacts the game or the gaming industry in general, but I would assume that it does impact how developers interact with their player base. If you compare Bungie to Digital Extremes, who make Warframe, Bungie is so withdrawn from their community compared to Warframe, and there is so much hostility towards Bungie. Now, Bungie's not innocent in this, but I think it's really reasonable to say that when a game is not going well, streamers and creators stoke the fires, stoke the flames, add gasoline to the fire, and that can definitely close off lines of communication. At the bare minimum, players fight amongst themselves. Groups are formed between those who still like the game and those who don't. And the end result is a place where you would normally go to relax, escape life, talk with friends, is now an incredibly hostile place that is very unenjoyable to be in. Now, at this point, I'm feeling pretty bad. I'm feeling like a bad person. Like, damn, did I ruin gaming? Am I? I was just trying to make some money from gaming, from playing games for a living, not ruin it. But look, honestly, people were pretty, reasonable about this topic. And there are plenty of other factors that they mentioned that have had a dramatic impact on games and the gaming industry. Like, for example, it's a billion-dollar industry. Corporate greed ruined gaming, not streamers. The customers are now the investors, not the players. It's no longer about making a good game, but rather selling the most copies. It's no longer about providing an excellent experience for a month or 6 months or even a year, but rather trying to hook the player for a lifetime through manipulative game mechanics designed and informed by psychology. Streamers don't force game developers to make battle royale after battle royale. Game companies see these massive communities as dollar signs and pick what they think will capture these audiences with the least amount of risk. There are definitely AAA companies out there that are the exception to this, but for the most part, it's the indie developers that consistently provide novel experiences in gaming. Gaming suffers like any other form of art or any hobby really that sees this huge influx of money. But there is a little bit of hope, and a little bit of hope is restored to me when I see game companies just do the right thing by their players and put the player first. And I especially love when that game becomes incredibly successful because of that mentality. Now, I have criticized myself a lot in this video. I've taken a lot of shots. I've also taken a bunch of shots like then at game companies and their CEOs, but there's still one more group of people that I need to attack and offend, and that's you, the consumer. Streamers make rage bait because you keep clicking on it. Streamers like me play popular releases because when I play unknown indie games, few people show up. I can objectively show you that the last month of streaming has my lowest viewership, and I've played a different indie game almost every day, and that's why people don't show up. Game companies keep increasing microtransactions because you keep buying them. I had multiple people admit that they are part of the problem too, especially with Destiny, that they are not enjoying the grind, but they're still playing every single day, still grinding, and yet still complaining about it every day. Good thing is, you hold all the power. Streamers like myself need your viewership to exist. Game companies need your playtime to exist. Choose what you watch and what games you play for a better industry. Now, it wouldn't be fair for me to bang on about how streamers ruined everything without mentioning some of the positives. Here's how streamers positively influence gaming. Authentic and free advertising of indie games that do not have massive marketing budgets. We've seen this time and time again with smaller games getting worldwide attention, and the spark for that has been a big streamer playing their game without a sponsorship and showcasing it to their audiences. Streamers can pressure positive changes within a game or within the industry when they consult properly with their audiences and gather the everyday gamer's opinion. They can be great representatives. Similarly, they can oppose anti-consumer practices like ridiculously priced microtransactions. At their best, they provide a positive community, a town hall for people to gather and enjoy games. Some games these days need guides, especially for the new player. There is zero chance that I would be able to understand the full complexities of Warframe without YouTube guides, and YouTube guides preserve that knowledge. Streamers provide opportunities to welcome new players to their game and help them either directly or through their communities. Streamers can definitely preserve the life of a game. When games have potential, streamers and their communities can prop them up and get the right feedback to hopefully make a better game. Despite some pretty fair criticisms of streamers and content creators, most people don't think that streamers ruined gaming solely by themselves. They're just part of the billion-dollar industry. And often their interest in growing their brands and their channels align with what game companies also want to achieve: strong, long-lasting, supportive communities. The hard part is separating true authenticity from just wanting to get into your wallet, whether that's the streamer or the game company. This video took way too long to make, so a like and a comment would be greatly appreciated. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Peace.